Are you experiencing back pain that you can't get rid of? Getting migraines, vertigo, having trouble sleeping, and/or brain fog? Do you feel like your medical doctor doesn't understand your condition? Blair Chiropractic might be the solution you've been looking for. If you've ever been skeptical about this, the two doctors you're about to listen to were even more skeptical than you were when they looked into chiropractic work. But fear not. Get expert guidance from the blonde and the bald, Doctors Beth Bagley and Frederick Schurger. These two doctors have extensive experience beyond the healthcare realm and bringing unique vision and healing to their patients. What do you have when you get a biological analyst and an engineer together? Find out right here on another episode of The Blonde and the Bald. Welcome your hosts, Doctors Bagley and Schurger.
Welcome, Dr. Bagley. How are you doing this evening?
I'm good. How are you doing, Dr. Schurger?
I'm doing excellent. Hello, everybody. We're glad to be back for another episode of The Blonde and the Bald. Tonight, we're going to talk about electrolytes.
Electrolytes. And some family stuff.
And some family stuff. For those of you who are old enough to remember the movie Idiocracy, and if you haven't watched it recently, it holds up.
Definitely holds up, and it actually
might be a little
coming
predictive.
true.
It might
it's
be a little bit
true.
It might have happened faster than we thought. But electrolytes, as the joke goes, was what they put on everything because for whatever reason, Powerade, or maybe it was Gatorade or something like that, decided to continue advertising, and they put electrolytes on everything, including their crops. And for some reason, they couldn't figure out why their crops would not grow. And if you've ever heard the term salt the earth, because a little bit of salt's not bad for crops. A lot of salt is bad for crops. And
absolutely,
some of these minerals are good in certain quantities. It will kill stuff off.
I just had a thought flash. So
yes.
Something that's also will kill plants is a very high dose of vinegar.
Yes.
So instead of having Roundup, which is very toxic and awful, in your garage or shed,
right,
you can buy at the hardware store a 20% vinegar solution, and it doesn't smell good. I'll tell you that when you spray it smells very much like vinegar. 2 days later, all of those plants in the cracks are dead. So
nice.
spray vinegar.
I will have to see about getting a higher dose of vinegar. But in any case, we're going to talk about electrolytes because it's a popular thing. You're seeing things like the LMNT and other products out there on the market. I hope that this is a cost savings. Yeah, Dr. Bagley has spent the high dollars and got her LMNT.
I got this one free.
Yeah, nice. I need to order. Honestly, I like the product. I'm not going to say it's a bad product. It's a great product.
No, it's quick. It's quick.
It's on the go.
It's tasty.
You can take it with you. They're the mint chocolate. I've got one left. In fact, I might turn it into a hot chocolate tonight. Apparently works really good in hot water. But why are electrolytes important? It's because your body needs these minerals. And so the main big electrolytes are going to be some sort of sodium, potassium, certainly magnesium and zinc will fall in there to lesser degrees. But really your big three are going to be your sodium, your potassium, and your magnesium.
Does calcium come in as an electrolyte, in your opinion?
No, I don't think so. I mean, yes.
It does. There's calcium channels and calcium channel blockers and all sorts of stuff.
And it depends.
But you don't see it in electrolyte mixes.
But you don't need it in electrolytes because you're going to get it in other sources of food. Calcium will show up in other places. But I think for the ones, and you don't turn over your calcium nearly as fast as you're going to be turning over your sodium and your potassium on a daily basis. Because you also have a giant bank of calcium that is your skeletal system. So, I mean, if you think about it, we are a big old bank of calcium that we can draw from when we need it. We don't need a lot in the bloodstream, and it's very tightly controlled. So I wouldn't say it's a strict electrolyte, but it has some functions that are similar. But the big ones are going to be your sodium and your potassium. And a lot of people aren't feeling good about this. I had a patient in the other week, and she's taking potassium, a couple small potassium supplements, and she's loving her avocados and her energy and her brain, especially when her brain sort of gets into this sort of dark, depressed place. She goes for an avocado. By the way, guacamole.
And that's high in potassium, is what you're saying.
It is very high in potassium.
Avocado. Well,
it's more high.
Everybody will say bananas, right?
Exactly. And I was just going to say.
That's not so true.
Well, it is, but the problem with bananas, it's also high in sugar.
Very
Um,
high in sugar, like
so
super high
so either an
fructose.
avocado or a guacamole, which is technically a fruit salad.
Okay, I like it.
I like
I
it.
mean, I like some. See, the problem is though, when you go for guac, typically people are going for tortilla chips,
Lots
and
and
that's
lots of
not such a
chips.
good
Yeah,
choice.
yeah. Be careful on your chips. But any case, high in potassium. In fact, when I started figuring out that my potassium levels were just in the tank was when I was just craving guacamole, and I was in just a bad emotional place. I made a bunch of guacamole, ate it almost immediately, and I felt so much better. I'm like, what's in this that makes me feel so much better? And I realized it was the potassium.
And
So
love. There's always love in
there
guacamole.
is, especially the guacamole that I make, but that's Alton Brown's recipe. Folks, you can go find that on the Food Network channel. That's a different story. But the potassium, and I think I'd already started going into the keto carnivore, probably more keto at that point in time, where I was having a hard time maintaining my electrolyte balance internally. When you start going on one of these elimination diets like keto, like carnivore, even vegan diets to a lesser degree, because it's in the vegetables that they're supposed to be eating. And I say that because many vegans don't eat vegetables, because Oreos are vegetarian, or Oreos are technically vegan, and apparently can now bring your cholesterol down. We're not
Oh,
going there
so
today.
Oreos are good for us? That's so great. I'm gonna go pick me some up.
I know, because a serving size is one whole box. We
Yeah,
talked about this last time.
or a sleeve
Or a
of
sleeve.
things.
But potassium is probably the one that we need even more, because we are salting our food already. And we're going to get on to we're going to talk a little bit about why sodium is important, why it's important for heart health in a second. But I want to hit on potassium because most people aren't getting enough potassium in their diet. Patient comes down from Chicago. She's telling me about the supplement she's taking. And most of the supplements in a pill form is only going to be about 99 milligrams. The reason being is dry potassium chloride, when it hits your stomach, will burn a hole through your stomach. 99 milligrams, not too bad. Anything over that, you're going to have a problem. And what I have found to be the best ratio is I like a 2-to-1 ratio of sodium to potassium. So some sort of sea salt to a potassium chloride. And I've shown this in the past. This is the new salt that I have. You don't have to get new salt. New salt happens to be available in most every grocery store. And I will take a 2-to-1 ratio, so 2 half teaspoons of sodium chloride to 1/2 teaspoon of potassium chloride. And I will put it in a
in the
water
new
bottle.
salt, do you have the
Yep.
new salt in front of you? What are the ingredients of new salt?
So
Just
new
like
salt
looking at
is
it.
potassium chloride. That's the only
And
thing
that's
on
it.
That's it.
Yeah. So what I wanted to point out is I've got a different one that I don't recommend, but I bought it accidentally, called Morton Salt Substitute.
Yes.
And I don't recommend it because potassium chloride is the number one in there, but then you've got fumaric acid, monocalcium phosphate, and silicon dioxide.
So
Probably to keep it so it's.
yes,
But I've heard good things about fumaric acid.
I was going to say
actually.
fumaric acid is a really good binder, and that's probably why it's in there. So
Yeah.
it'll bind to other junk through your system, but
Mhm.
you don't need all the other stuff because, quite honestly, it doesn't. I mean, this stuff probably, the new salt probably is smoother than like the Redmond's real salt sometimes clumps. I mean, they're small clumps, they'll break apart immediately, but I've not had potassium chloride ever clump up on me. It stays pretty thin.
So the other place that I have bought it is through bulk supplements on Amazon, and
Yep.
it's just pure
Potassium
chloride.
Yep.
So that's just another way if you're making, I like to make a big batch of electrolytes, and we'll talk about what we do.
In fact, I get mine from bulk supplements as well for that.
And then I put it in a shaker and I shake it into my stuff. But there's different ways you can, see, like we do the same thing.
Yeah, I've got a little bottle that I use, and I'll use a half tablespoon, maybe a little bit of a light half tablespoon into a bottle of water like this. And this is probably 24, 25 ounces, and I don't notice it. Definitely at a teaspoon, you won't notice it. At a half tablespoon, it comes back and forth. But at a half tablespoon, that's 3 half teaspoons, right? That will give you 1.5 grams of elemental potassium. You need 5 a day. And if you're active and you're
Wow.
really working out, see, this is where it gets tricky, because if you buy it in a capsule, it's only 99 milligrams.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to get that, you would have to take 10 of those. No, 15 of those. And nobody's taking 15 of those.
No.
That's too much work.
And nobody would do it. So
Yeah.
do you feel like most people then
Oh,
are
absolutely.
potassium deficient?
Absolutely. Because,
Okay.
and this is why I am so militant about making sure you take your electrolytes on a regular basis. Because once you start adding potassium, a lot of things start getting better. Why? Because why are sodium and potassium like the two things that I just don't live without? I have it near me at all times. If I'm traveling, I have it handy. Sodium chloride is the salt water in your blood.
Mm-hmm.
Potassium chloride is the salt water in your cells. So
Mm-hmm.
if you've ever felt like if like really dehydrated, the question is are you dehydrated in your blood, or are you
Mm-hmm.
dehydrated in your cells? And both of those are bad things. So we want to make sure we want to make sure both are fully hydrated, so that when you do things, when you're active or when you want to be active, you can actually do things. So the potassium is in my mind one of the best things you can take. And if you want to go take today I went in for my in-body test to see what my body composition was. I think I was drinking my mix this morning. Every time I drink my mix, I see a better muscular volume versus fat volume. And I'm like, all right, I'm doing something right here. So that is where I would start down that rabbit hole. I'm just going to go down through this one page here. Let me show this one. This is off Healthline. I'm not going to use any sort of fancy websites tonight. So it helps the body regulate fluids, send nerve signals, regulate muscle contractions. It functions as an electrolyte inside your body. And again, when we're taking this as a powder into water, it turns into an ion. If it's dry, it cannot ionize properly in your body. So it's easier. You can take more faster by putting it in water. By putting it in
Mm-hmm.
water, the sodium or the potassium and the chloride have this, basically ionic form. Instead of being connected together, they're magnetically connected. They disconnect that magnetic, and
Mm-hmm.
it helps you just.
Absorb, right? You can get it into your body better. Like if I was just to dump
Yep.
this element into my mouth right now, it wouldn't go very well.
No.
First of all,
No.
but second
Yeah.
of all, it honestly isn't a healthy way to take electrolytes.
Right. And this part here is fluid balance. I mean, if we are, the numbers, I've seen the number of between 60 to 80% water is what we are. But of that, 40% of that water is inside your cells. The potassium is driving that into your cells. That's your intracellular fluid. We can measure extracellular fluid very well. That's all our
Mm-hmm.
blood, our spinal fluid. We cannot measure the intracellular fluid as well. So we want to make sure we are giving that the ideal, I suppose the right word is osmolality,
Mm-hmm.
but that's a big fancy word to basically say that you have the right conditions for the cell to work properly.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about in chiropractic about balancing the
Yes,
nervous system. What we're talking about today is balancing the fluids in your body,
right.
and
And
inside and outside need to they have different say it for me.
I
Osmolality?
know it's
Osmolality? It was
I know it's right. It's like osmolat.
osmolality.
Yeah, there. Anyways, but we're
Osmolality.
looking to balance this out.
But it needs to be balanced. Like, and that's if you remember from science class when you're a kid, they put this semi-permeable barrier between two things,
Yeah,
and the water will even out depending on how much salt's on one side and how much is on the other side. So
exactly.
you might push water to one side.
Right.
So our cells are these semi-permeable membranes,
Yeah.
and that is the essence of how these electrolytes work in fluid in your body. So a lot of times people will take things or take medications that can change that because it might push things out of their urine. And caffeine is one of the things that we
Yeah.
often see with that too, is people drink caffeine, and neither Dr. Sugar or I are anti-caffeine. We both like caffeine. But if you drink caffeine, it does make you pee more, and that actually will help. It will push electrolytes out. So
And
it's
many,
just something that you have to consider.
yeah, when we talk about things like coffee, some teas, I mean, these are diuretics. They are going to run and flush your system out. There are a lot of medications that are diuretics. And
Hmm.
the question becomes, when do we have enough of the electrolytes? And how can you tell that you have enough electrolytes in your system? Quite honestly, I would recommend you make up a quick batch of this. Like I said, this is a 2-to-1 ratio, Redmond's real salt and potassium chloride. I mean, you could
And
use,
you can put some magnesium powder in there too.
I wouldn't, and I'm gonna get,
No,
I'm gonna get to that here in a second, because I've tried that. It ended badly.
was it magnesium chloride?
It was not. Um,
That'll end badly at the toilet.
that will definitely end badly. So you start mixing this up, and you can start saying, "Hey, that's refreshing." In fact, I have recommended. This happens to be my Trader Joe's bottle of apple cider vinegar. A splash of
Yeah.
this in your water bottle with the electrolytes is a very refreshing drink. This happens to be Bragg's in the actual bottle, but I picked this up down by your office a couple of years ago because I wanted a
Yeah.
small
So
bottle in the office.
I've gotten away from Bragg's recently for the apple cider vinegar, and I use Fairchild's now.
Ah,
And if you read about it, you'll realize why. They actually have you get a better quality product,
yeah.
and it's higher in acidity. So
Good to know. Good to know because Bragg's changed ownership recently, and there's some
exactly. And it has
questions.
changed.
Yeah.
There, it's questionable. But
Well,
Fairchild's is really good, and you
and
can buy it on Amazon, on the Zon.
I just shook this up, and I don't know if you can see it,
I
but
can see it.
there are pieces of mother in the bottom of this that don't look like normal mother. Looks like I've got
It's
a
gone bad.
no. The vinegar really never goes bad. You just
I
use
don't
less
know.
of
I
it.
think it can.
But what I did find, we had a bottle of a name brand. I shouldn't say it on the podcast, but it's also a name brand ketchup. But
Hmm.
it was their brand of apple cider vinegar, and for whatever reason, we just didn't use it. It just sort of sat there on the counter. Was not in a place that got a lot of sun. It was a clear bottle, so nothing too fancy. And what was interesting is we didn't touch it for a long time. And then I looked at it and I realized, wasn't that brown before? All the brown pigments had disappeared. They had broken itself down, and it was just white vinegar. And I suspect it might have been white vinegar to begin with. So, like I said, if you can make good ketchup, don't necessarily think you can make other things that are good too. But that's really what it is. So potassium is important for the nervous system. Hey, wait a second, we're chiropractors. What are we trying
Hmm.
to optimize and benefit? We're trying to get your nervous system working the way it's supposed to, so that everything can work better. And
Yes.
potassium is a huge one. I was asking, I was going to make the comment about how do you know when you've had enough? You'll know. And I say this because if you taste it and you're like, oh, that's a lot of salt, even though you've been putting in the same amount every time, you know that you have hit your body's limit. Switch to clean, fresh water at that point in time until you're like, I am thirsty for thing again. That's honestly, that is your best method to say, do I need more? Do I need less? And you can just balance it back and forth that way. Let's see, anything else in here? Muscle and heart contractions. I mean, folks,
Yes.
that's what you want. You want to be
So
jacked and
people,
tanned.
that's right. So people will talk a lot about muscle cramping, like at
Yes.
nighttime. If you just started keto or carnivore, cramping is very
Or working
common.
out, or just even
Yes.
working out.
Yes. And cramping absolutely can be a sign of probably not enough potassium, but also salt.
Yeah.
And so salt has been
Demonized.
demonized for
Yeah.
years. And I agree, like eating table salt with the iodine in it, I'm not a huge fan. I don't think it's not the best salt. I tend to go with the Himalayan or the
Yeah. Which also
Himalayan is,
has some iodine in it.
yeah, but it's not heavily processed. It's not
No.
white.
No.
And we know white is bad. But if someone is having cramps at night, I think this is a really good rabbit hole to kind of go down
Yeah.
and figure out, what are you doing? And
Right.
typically you're just not having enough of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest, is hitting up a Gatorade or a Powerade or a Pedialyte is not the right route. First of all, most of that is just disgusting amounts of sugar. If it is sweet and zero sugar, then you're eating artificial colors and sweeteners. So just finding Element is not mostly not artificial. I think some of their flavors might have some artificialness, but it's at least stevia flavored, or I think it is. I'd have to look again.
Yep.
But you can just put it in water, and honestly, it's okay.
Yeah, no, it's real simple. Now, getting back to the cramping, the two ways to think about cramping, and it's very well possible that I'm going to have these backwards because sometimes they sit backwards in my brain. But when you are cramping at rest, potassium. When you are
Okay.
cramping in activity, magnesium.
Got it. I think you're right. I think you're correct.
I think that's right. I think that's right. If it's wrong, then the point of it is you need more potassium and you need more magnesium either way. And you need both. I believe Element has
1,000 milligrams of sodium in one packet, 2,000 milligrams or 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium. And it's magnesium malate.
Yeah, and there's a new one that just came out. I can't remember the name brand that Robert Sykes on the Keto Savage channel reviewed, that was 900, 300, and 100 of potassium, or of sodium, potassium, and magnesium. The point is get some of these into your system on a regular basis, because these are things you need to consume. Because quite honestly, they're not, you don't have good quality in the food supply, and the stuff that was in the vegetables that should be in the vegetables isn't getting there if you're eating vegetables at all.
Yes.
So let's see. I'm just going to run through these potassiums because I want to switch over to a couple other things.
Go up a little bit. That may help reduce blood pressure.
Yep.
So many people have been told they have high blood pressure because they eat too much salt. And I'd like to tell you, it's not because you're eating too much salt. It's because you're eating too much processed food.
Yes.
And processed food is high in salt, but that's not the reason you have the high blood pressure.
Right. This is where anything that's overly processed is going to be a problem in general. And, everyone's, why did Mrs. Dash become very popular? Because they were able to put a potassium chloride with low sodium together, and that became more popular. So there's some benefits to, your blood pressure, probably because you're not getting enough potassium in the first place, and maybe protective of strokes. There's, according to the Healthline, some osteoporosis benefits. It'll help as far as building better bones and mineral health. If you're having, the question becomes, oh, you have too much salt, so that's why you have kidney stones. No, you don't have a proper balance of salt and potassium, sodium and potassium.
And you're not probably drinking enough water on a daily basis too.
Exactly.
So you have to be able to dilute your urine. Your urine, unless you've been just taking some supplements, your urine should be just the light yellow color, not dark in the toilet.
Exactly.
So if it is dark in the toilet, go drink some water right now.
Yep. And here it is again, about 5 milligrams or 5,000 milligrams, which is 5 grams of potassium. It seems to be optimal. If you're active, that's going to go up because you're going to dump that stuff faster. If you are on keto or carnivore or any one of the restrictive diets where you're eliminating certain things out of your diet, you will need to supplement with it, because otherwise your body will not hold on to it because you have reduced your glucogenic load. As you hold more carbohydrates, as you consume more carbohydrates, the carbohydrates will actually help you maintain that sodium potassium level. But as you get rid of that, then you're going to need to add in and supplement outside of that.
And I'm going to add to this list that you're showing up, because I was like, I know beef has potassium in it.
Oh, it absolutely does.
6-ounce ribeye fillet has roughly 438 milligrams of potassium. So you can get it from meat too. Yeah.
And folks, when people say, oh, we don't know what's in, meat's just protein. It's like, and most of our vitamins, because they stopped looking at them and they haven't broken down all the stuff that's in meat. Again, over the counter, 99 milligrams. And it's not because of, there it is. 99 milligram is likely because many studies have found that high doses of potassium from supplements, this is a dry powder, may damage the gut and even lead to death by heart arrhythmia.
You need to have it mixed with water
But when you do it
in a solution.
And when you do it in a solution, it is much easier on your system. It does not cause any of these problems. Anyways, most of us, less than 2% of Americans meet the U.S. recommendations for potassium. So these are, again, and this doesn't surprise me in the least.
That surprises me.
Really?
Yeah. Well,
5 grams.
Okay. So now I'm just like looking back to like our ancestors, right?
Yep.
How, like, cavemen, whatever we want to talk about. I guess where were they getting their potassium?
Well, they were getting, so you're spot on. They were getting it in the meat. They were eating to a lesser degree. I mean, they're not eating, the thing that, what was this they're not eating avocados. They don't have avocado toast.
No, why? I don't understand.
know, right?
And why didn't they just Uber eat some? They can get it delivered.
Well, and here's the thing. The baked sweet potato that we eat today, that I could have my wife cook up for me tonight before I come home.
Hint, hint.
I'm not having one tonight. I'm probably going to make a pizza. Really.
Oh, okay. I was like, a pizza, not a pizza.
Yeah, exactly. But the tuber, if you go to not South America, to Africa, to some of the tribes, the Hadza, they have something that is akin to a sweet potato, except it is just all fiber. It is like root all the way through it. You can barely chew on the thing, and then you end up spitting it out because you will never digest that fiber. It probably does not have 475 milligrams of potassium in it. So there are
maybe
other
that's
ways.
Also why they live to like the age of 25. So I mean,
well, they live to 80 as long as they don't fall out of a tree trying to get fall out of a baobab tree trying to get.
No, I'm talking about the cavemen. So
but they lived, so they who knows? We've got some back and forth numbers.
We don't know, but one of the reasons I think they were able to get more nutrients is our ancestors, the ground had potassium and magnesium in it, and when they ate the foods that they harvested, it was naturally in the foods, where our farm system has decimated. And I'm glad that we have a farm system, not yelling at farmers. They're not doing anything wrong, but we just don't have the nutrients in the soil anymore.
Well, because all of this stuff, all the all the minerals are bound up by the pesticides, like glyphosate and Roundup, that prevent us from getting into our food. So any case, that's it. Anything else we should cover on potassium? I mean, you need it, folks. And
we need potassium. Like we've talked about in other podcasts, we've talked about importance of magnesium.
Yes.
That you can take by supplement form. It's not going to burn a hole in your stomach. But there's ways that are, although I do enjoy the element, I think it's really easy. It's on the go type of thing. I think if there are more cost-effective ways to get it, like the new salt or just buying the bulk supplement of the potassium chloride. But again, mix it with water before you don't just put it in your mouth.
And quite honestly, if you did 2 of the mix that I did, the 2-to-1 mix, if you did 2 water bottles with that, with a half tablespoon of that mix, that will get you 3 grams of potassium plus whatever you're going to eat in a day. You will feel better. It will be, you're like, I didn't realize this was a thing.
And 2-to-1, you're saying the 2 would be
sodium.
the salt. The sodium, so a Himalayan salt or something like that,
or you
which
could,
has.
And some people flip it. Some people will do a 2 potassium, 1 sodium. I think you need more sodium because we are
that's what Element does too. So I would say I think you're right on there.
And that's what most of the people are doing. Like I said, I've seen it flipped. If you want to do just a 1-to-1 ratio because you're getting a bunch of salt in other places, you can do that. But you can play around with it to figure out what you need to do. You can buy the Element. I think it's a fantastic product. Redmond's Reelite, I think, has something. There's several products out there that exist if you need something on the go. But if you can buy it in bulk and do it at home, you're going to save a ton of money because you're a box of LMNT is probably going to run you $30. Maybe you're going to get 30 to 40 sticks out of that, depending upon how they package it. But they have to package it, opposed to that bag of potassium chloride is probably what,
Mhm.
$25?
I don't even think it was that much,
Yeah,
but yeah, and I mean, it's lasted me quite a while,
right,
you
right.
know, because
In
I
fact,
don't mix it all at once.
I used to have it on auto ship from Amazon. I had to take it off auto ship because I had 2 extra bags, and that was on a 4-month, 5-month auto ship. I wasn't going through it as fast.
Yeah.
Let's talk about salt. There is, for those of you who are listening at home, there is a U-shaped distribution, and I've got a couple different graphs of this. This was one that I found that was least pretty to sort of start with. But there is a U-shaped distribution where if you have too little salt, your disease level goes up. And if you have too much salt, your disease level goes up. And we are, again, hitting right around a 5 gram per day ideal salt intake. So now we could talk about how what I was recommending for a salt intake is actually a little bit higher. And again, that is, you can gauge that based upon how salty is your drink. If your drink is too salty, move to straight water. And if you're drinking straight water and it feels empty, add a little bit of salt. But this U-shaped curve, and you start getting, I've got another one that's actually better here. Here it is. So between 3 to 5 grams a day of sodium is ideal for most people. And I would say this is a sedentary thing. So China is much higher, but they also use monosodium glutamate a lot over there. And we're a little bit on the low side because we got freaked out by
Yep.
sodium intake. Global average seems to be around 4. And the problem is you start going further to the left of this graph, you actually start having more and more health risks overall. So again, this is a major electrolyte. This is actually out of a CrossFit study here. This one was interesting. I don't know if, oh, hello. I have just hopped out of that. All right, we still sharing? Good.
Yes, I can see it.
So this is a 2016 paper that they were looking at, and this was for CrossFit athletes. Some that had, I don't know if this was CrossFit athletes.
Well, it's
No,
in CrossFit Journal, so
it is. But it's, I'm double checking. But basically, when you
or
had
these athletes or just everyone. Yeah.
I think this was everyone because this was like
Okay.
this was 133,000 individuals.
Got
They
it.
were
So this
looking
is
at
not just
people,
CrossFits. Yeah.
right? But they were looking at people with and without hypertension.
Mm-hmm.
So what they found in the hypertensive group, if your salt level got too low, well, in all groups, below about that 4,000 milligram group,
Mm-hmm.
and this is a more recent study than that other chart was showing. The ideal level is 3 to 6 grams a day, but when you are in the overall, and when you look at everybody, and when you look at the hypertensive group, you are definitely having a situation where you don't want to push it too high. But when you have people who aren't hypertensive, now we were just talking about hypertension being a potassium issue potentially, as well as a junk food issue. When you have
Mm-hmm.
people who don't have hypertension, look at this. This is a really interesting graph where
Mm.
the people, the problem, the hazard ratio, when you start seeing other problems from having too much salt in the hypertensive group, goes away in the mean group over here. So they saw, people were taking up to 12 grams of potassium a day, but they were also getting rid of it just as fast as they were using it. So it was turnover that was actually more important in these cases here. So when you start thinking about things, it's like, all right, what do I need to do what is my activity level? So like today, quiet day here in the office, no workout for me. I've had 2 of these with extra salt, maybe 3. And I'm running around, I'm active, but I'm probably not as active as I will be, say, on tomorrow when I've got a major workout ahead of me, and I'm just going to, well, kick my butt to see how much I can push. And I do my workout fasted, so I'm going to need extra electrolytes to push myself through my workout right off the bat. So I'm not going to have a problem if I'm approaching consuming 12 grams of salt tomorrow. In fact, I've seen some of these charts where it is suggesting up to 15 grams a day is still not a problem. Again, if you're utilizing all of that electrolyte and you're getting rid of it because you're staying hydrated. So that's the short of it.
The short of it is most people don't need 15 grams of salt, but
Exactly.
it's not causing the epidemic of hypertension like they've
Exactly.
been talking about.
Exactly. And here we have basically helplines talk about what's going on in salt and, how much foods there is, might it be heart healthy or heart failure. You need to eat a lot of salt to get to that point. And
Yeah,
again,
you
here's
can
that.
poison yourself on anything, and you
Right.
can poison yourself on salt.
Yeah, exactly.
But it would
Exactly.
take quite a bit.
Yeah. But most people, consume 1 to 2 tablespoons or teaspoons a day. That's not going to be a problem. There's maybe some links to stomach cancer, but again, for how much of these studies have been based upon poor salt quality? Are they, is it salted meats? Is it pickled vegetables? Is it some of the canning stuff that we've been doing forever, but we've changed the product that we now have something different going on there? So they're not certain, but we definitely know that too little salt is a major problem for hypotension, low blood pressure, dehydration. My wife is always, she has a lot of problems staying where she needs to be for salt. And if she's just a little underneath for her sodium levels, she needs a transfusion of salt, which is odd, but she feels great right afterwards. And hey, here's the worst part. Too low of salt elevates your cholesterol and triglycerides. So,
And
but
they've been telling us to reduce our salt for years. And now all of a sudden, everyone needs to go on statin drugs to reduce their
exactly.
cholesterol.
Yeah,
Maybe you just need to eat some healthy salt.
exactly. And this is where, we start, I'm not a fan of Morton's white processed, it is
Me neither.
clear as can be. The problem ends up being is it's lacking the minerals that would have normally buffered it.
Yeah.
All of these salts, both they can actually move us into a more acidic ratio, whereas if it has the mineral content associated with it, keeps it in a very more even level. So we're staying at that roughly 7 point pH, which is very similar to water. So
that kind of reminds me of fruit juice when people drink like a Welch's grape juice or something.
yes,
And they're just inundated with that huge amount of sugar with
yep,
that. Where grapes aren't they're still high in sugar, but they're not necessarily bad for you. You can only eat a handful of grapes and you're full, but you could drink a whole bucket of Welch's
exactly.
grape juice.
Because
So you're giving these kids all of that sugar, but you've taken out what actually helps your body mitigate that sugar burst, and that's the
right,
fiber and the nutrient,
the pulp and the skin and
all the good stuff.
yeah,
So, and
it
we're
was
not
already
anti.
packaged perfectly.
It was. It was. And then we have to squeeze it and take all the pulp out. And yeah, it does taste great. So does soda. Neither of
Mhm.
those are good for you.
Yeah,
So yeah,
exactly.
there was a big study that just came out last week and everyone was like, duh. And it was the I don't know who paid for this one, but it was juice makes kids fat. And I was like, yeah, that
Really?
that
I can't
happens.
believe that.
I know everybody on the post that was underneath it was just like, duh, yeah, okay, we know that. I'm glad. I wonder how much the NIH or whatever government grant paid for that
NIH,
study.
yeah. Oh, that's nutty.
Yes.
But so I'm going to hit on a couple of others that may or may not fall and why I don't put magnesium in that mix.
I want to hear that because I don't know.
Right.
I don't know that.
So you can add zinc. Zinc, especially for men, might be considered an electrolyte, but I would add that separately. I would not add that in straight water. You could add some magnesium to the water, but the reason I don't add it to my mix is it does something happens and maybe it was my choice of magnesium, the chelate that I chose when I mix it with the salt and the potassium chloride, that it ends up binding weird and changing the entire mix. So there's
Yeah,
some
no,
sort of
then
so there's a chemical reaction that I suspect is happening in a dry situation, which does me no good, and it makes the mix undesirable. You got to be able to drink this stuff. You got to say, oh, I need that. Oh, that tastes good, and that helps me through my day. If you can't do that, you're going to pitch it. You're going to not use it, and at best pitch it and start over. So that's why I would use magnesium separate from that mix, and maybe why they use a much smaller dose. I was using a
it
higher
is.
dose, and I was having problems with the mix breaking down. So that was that, and that was why I've opted not to put that in. The other
Yeah,
one that I'm
I would say we do have magnesium in this mix, and it's never caused that, but it may be because it's such a lower dose.
right, right. And then the last thing I want to hit on is one that I have gone down a rabbit hole since the ice day that we had on Monday. But I had gone down the boron rabbit hole because I was like, hey, we're going to talk about electrolytes, and one of an electrolyte of our body is boron. Folks, I'm going to save that for a whole podcast.
Yeah.
Because, or at least a good half of a podcast, because my goodness, it was, I mean, this is the short stack of papers that I have. I've got about 5 or 6 articles here. I've got a couple others that I've saved that are only 200 or 300 pages long, going into boron. We'll talk about that, but that one I'm really excited about, and we'll share about that one next time.
Nice.
So, any case, that's a good place to wrap up the electrolytes. Let's talk about family stuff. You had some ideas. I had an idea about it, and I've forgotten what I wanted to say about it. And
I don't even know if we'll have time to talk about family stuff because I have so much to say.
But you go ahead.
But
you had some ideas that you wanted to touch on.
Yeah, so family dynamics, one of the issues that I hear a lot in my office, and I have personal opinions about, is narcissistic personality disorder, or a narcissist in your life. And so I don't know if I just attract people that are more like me and have had experiences with narcissists, but I honestly think this is a whole podcast. So I think in the next one or two, I think people are going to have to listen because I have so much to say on it.
All right.
Like, I honestly could go 45 minutes on this.
Well, then, and I think we've just gone the better part of 45 for the electrolyte stuff.
Electrolytes.
So, and again, why are electrolytes important to the upper cervical doc? Because we want to get your nervous system working ideally. You know, my job, I love to say, all right, let's put your head on straight. Had a patient come in today, and she's like, yeah, the shoulder, I'm doing better, but she was holding her adjustment. And if I just said, all right, we're just going to take care of your neck, and I'm not going to take care of whatever's going on in your shoulder, it is a short changing her appointment if I don't actually say, hey, what else is going on? And, you know, she didn't need electrolytes today, but she did need some stretches and some rehab that she could do, that, especially since she's going to, you know, she's got a couple of weeks before she's going to be able to get back in here. She's taking care of family out of state. Here, do this every day. In a month, you won't even know that was a problem. So it's a matter of finding what are the other things that are going on in your life and your health that we have to fix. And again, I like to look at the big things that will have a huge impact. Getting your head on straight, huge impact. Electrolytes, potassium. If you do nothing else off this episode and take a bunch of potassium, you're going to do better.
Take it in water, though. Don't just put it in your mouth.
Yes,
don't do it.
Thank you. Do not be the bro who decides that they're going to freebase a scoop of what do they do? Pre-workout directly into their mouth. I'm just like,
nope.
I don't get this. I mean, you have a shaker bottle.
You burn a hole in your gut. Let's not do that. But it is safe to take in water.
It is.
So definitely do that, and don't do the other way.
Do not.
And honestly, talk to your doctor about any of the things that we talked about today, because we're not your doctors unless we are.
Exactly. Unless we are, yes.
But then still talk to us, because everyone's different and we can't put every person that's listening into one basket. But in general, as you pointed out, 2% of the US population is getting enough potassium. So my guess is that I'm not either.
Yeah. And like I said,
even though I do take it.
Yeah, 3 if you made sure that you were getting, what was that one? Because that was, anyways, I'm
3 to 5 grams.
Yeah, 5 grams is what you need. You know, I've seen 4.7. I was like, oh, 4.7, 4,700 milligrams. I'm like, 5 grams. Just be simple, round it up to an easy number. And
like even like Element here, it's only 200 milligrams. That's not even touching it.
No. The other thing that I'm going to point out is so many of these numbers are RDAs. They are the recommended daily allowance to
Mhm.
not get scurvy. The RDA for vitamin C is so you do not get scurvy. The RDA for the longest time of vitamin D was so you did not get rickets. Now,
Yeah.
scurvy and rickets, they're mostly taken care of. There's a lot of stuff that has been fortified so that we get these vitamins in what they call cereals. I call it crap. But RDA is just enough so you don't
To
get the
keep you from being
disease.
super sick.
Right. It is not enough to be optimal.
Nope.
And what we do by correcting the atlas and the upper neck is we benefit the nervous system to work optimally.
Yes. And actually, there was a really cool thing I was talking to a patient yesterday about is he's thinking about retirement. We're getting closer and closer to retirement, and you're tucking money away, investing it, doing all these things so that one day you can be retired. The problem is a lot of people are spending all their time thinking about investing in money and their finances, but they're not investing in their health. And
Right.
so now you turn 68, 70 years old, and your health is so deteriorated that you can't even enjoy all of that money and things that you socked away for retirement.
Right. And
So invest in your health just as much as you would invest in your retirement, if not more, because you can't you can't get it. Sometimes you just can't get it back once it's gone so far.
exactly. And this was what the family thing that came to me earlier when I sent this, and we'll wrap on this. My cousin was telling me at my uncle's funeral that he had sold his business and he was visiting his family. He's got 3 kids, one in Toledo, one in Youngstown. He lives in the Cleveland area, and then a third down in Florida. And he says, I'm 60. My health isn't great. I mean, he has this big old walking stick that to help him get around. He's looking at his siblings, his older siblings, and their health isn't great. He's enjoying his time with his family. I think that you got to make that choice and say, I'm going to do something different than what everybody else has done before me. And we are off, upper cervical is, especially the Blair upper cervical, is something different.
It sure is.
So Dr. Bagley, where are they going to find you so that they can get something different?
Something different is in the west area of St. Louis County. We're at precisionchirostl.com.
And I am at Keystone Chiropractic SBI. I think that's what it is. I think it's KeystoneChiroSBI.com in Springfield, Illinois here, and all the socials. Folks, make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment. Tell us what you think here. Let us
If you have
know
an
what
idea of what you want to know, like we will
Exactly.
go over questions too.
Yep, we're going to talk about family and boron very soon. And holy cow, it's going to be awesome.
It will be.
All right, folks. Thank you much. We'll see you next time. Remember, 5 grams of potassium
Potassium.
a day.
Get it.
That's all for today's episode of The Blonde and the Bald. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you enjoyed today's show with Drs. Bagley and Schurger, remember, don't give up and just live with the pain. Come back next week and get more answers and solutions. Visit our websites at KeystoneChiroSPI.com and PrecisionChiropracticSTL.com for more info, and catch all the episodes of The Blonde and the Bald.